Lost and disoriented. The behavior moves the chair in circles. And currently, the problem has to do with the choice made to spin the object around and cause disorientation. Words, language, letters, descriptions, writing, thoughts, decision making, almost infinite in the possibilities inherent in this system I'm talking about now, psychology. What's currently happening with the protests and the anger, the resentment, and the togetherness towards the unity of body, communicating, listening, living peacefully, unfortunately don't eliminate the underlying disagreement. In other words, behavior is now being used as communication, tribal, primitive, fierce, and very direct, with demands like adhere, listen, follow, or risk harm. And then they get into the self, and then they get into the mind and having a psychology. Mixed in with language about activism and rules. With the chair, the person says it's music. I'm making music for the video. The whoosh of the air going in through the microphone. The person in charge says, I'm not so sure. Let's make for certain. Go here for a little while and get some help to make sure there's no negative behavior happening now. In a less outrageous example, the Seattle Police Department, the police department in a city, town, state, watching for behavior that's illegal, selling drugs, killing, hurting, harming, assaulting, stealing, destroying. The person choosing to do the activity, the person who does the choice, then has a responsibility to the person who's saying they're doing the behavior. Their behavior has a problem. They go to jail, they get fined, they do community service, they do a bunch of stuff. And a person has to re-describe what they were doing to a judge, talk to a lawyer, go through a whole process of legal requirements in a system for justice. And what I'm seeing take place has to do with the behavior not being solved and eliminated, and completely removed to force the person who's brutal and causing harm to have to stop. And where the stop gets difficult has to do with what's being told about when a person stops. They're called a racist, they're shamed, they're told they are stupid and they are a bitch and they need to shut up. They are the problem. More behavior, punishment, getting far into the psychology language of self, ego, mind, and continuing and continuing and continuing. And making behavior as communication starts to begin to attempt the disruption with the people who are looking for behavior and watching for the behavior, who are then causing a problem with freedom of speech, the same free speaking voice also denied to a lot of people, also told to people like me, shut up, silence. There's this repeating infinity in this whole problem I'm describing. People telling people to shut up, people telling people they either talk or they will be physically silenced and called a racist, labeled as belligerent and ignorant and stupid as all heck. And outside of this world, the society and the culture have instigated, have decided as the war zone. There's tons of options and choices to be made. Except there's no voices. There's no sounds, there's no noise. There's no loud words, language, letters. Partly from all the hormones involved in this behavior being described now. People standing up to people who are standing up, and people who are standing up to people who are standing up, who are standing up behind people who are standing up. Everybody wants to posture for hormones. Everybody wants to behave for strength and power. And nobody's saying out loud, nobody's speaking about where these chemicals in the body come from, outside of the word or the language being used to describe them. They're not coming from the eyes. Our eyes don't squirt some testosterone and some estrogen and some dopamine and some serotonin all the way down and just shoots like a spray gun. They don't go in through the ears and they go down to the heart. They don't go in through the mouth and out through the balls or the vagina, or the arms and the legs and the hair. Behavior and hormones have to do with why the book describing them is over $3,000. They are nothing to mess around with and nothing to just play with now. Screaming to get tough, violent, physical, and yelling to get a person calmed and stopped. These are the same tactics and the same strategy used by the people being explained in the argument about inequality and the problem. And now the whole discussion has to do with they're the problem. Once they're gone and what they do doesn't exist, then the people yelling at them now will be able to have safety and security and people not being scared anymore. And unfortunately, requires a lot of trust in these faces and these mannerisms and these etiquettes. The screeching sounds, the thuds and the dish, dish, dish from the stereo. And then a person will walk by and have to survive being watched by these folks, people, and these humans who are listening, seeing, and consciously knowing the good and the evil. Anytime the initial response involves violence, there's a problem. Anytime someone makes a threat towards someone, there's a problem. And all these problems just get thrown aside, like tossed out. Like, no, man, they're part of the revolution. That's what happened. Don't you see history? Che Guevara went into the mountains. Venezuela, they had to say they were a different word. There's this underlying and fundamental belief in this system happening now in the world. All of the people in charge are the problem and need to get solved, including their businesses, their traditions, their practices, their authority. Not to get to a world with no and less authority, with better restraint, but quite frankly and simply, a world where the people do the job of the people in the government. Cities where people enforce strict rules and restrictions with their faces and their bodies and their eyes and their cheeks. Disarray naturally occurs in this behavioral dilemma. and thinking and thought. Slow down now.